All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest Sameul Hofman. Samuel, do we have you there with us?
Yes, you do. How you doing tonight?
Not bad. It's been almost a year to the day since we had you on last, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's what I think Andrea and Kara were saying. Is that right?
Yeah, I really like that because we're talking about, something that's going on that's like sort of cyclical and cosmic and astronomical in nature. So getting an update once a year seems like a good way to do it.
It follows an Earth rotation.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
And it's also, the new start of the 180-day cycle, so that, we're also seeing far more amounts of activity going on right now as of the transition from April to May.
Well, let's start right into it. For our guests, we're talking about Nibiru with our guest Sameul Hofman. If you want to find out more about him, you can check him out on Facebook, Montana Skywatchers, while we're talking about this. Okay, so what is you're saying the 180-day cycle, you said?
Yeah, it was something that we picked up on the Internet years ago. People were watching a cycle, and they were noting a level of different activities, mystically, cosmically, and all this sort of stuff. And I started paying attention to it, and it actually did sort of match what was going on with the asteroid fields and everything else. And I'm sure you've heard recently, the announcements by NASA. They've been over 4 or 5 major, not major, but there have been soft disclosures that they've been throwing out that are kind of alarming, and I hope you heard them. But
why don't you give me some examples? I catch a lot of them. My brain's a mess of info.
They started talking about they were going to start these drills with the understanding that an asteroid of 1,000 feet or so across would hit the Earth. And then a couple of days later, they started talking about the numbers of objects that were in our area. And then a couple of days later went by, and then they announced, you can count on having an asteroid of size hit Earth within our lifetimes, period. They were saying not if, but when. And then literally on the 4th major one that I took note of, they were actually discussing what their results of the simulation were. It was going to hit New York, and 1,350,000 people were going to die within X amount of radius blast zone and all of this. So they're basically soft disclosure prepping us for what we've been watching at Montana Skywatcher come in for just about 7 years. We started having these sightings of this little blip in the upper left-hand part of a lot of the captures, and it was oddly shaped and rainbowy and weird. And then over time, it got bigger and bigger, and then we kept our eye on it. And of course, to this day, now we have thousands of the pictures to what we call the object cluster group, because we've noticed numerous very large asteroids, smaller asteroids, and then just mile after mile after mile behind it in rainbow refracting debris with electrical discharging. And I'm sure we probably talked about the OCG here a year or two back.
Yeah.
But probably briefly. But anyway.
So is it your thought that these asteroids are coming with the
we're
Nibiru system,
in an
not
asteroid
ours?
field normally at this time of year with our normal solar system, the one that everybody knows about, and Halley's Comet is recently going by here at this point in time also, and then we had the exiting of a couple of major asteroids that they've been watching leave our solar system, and there was all this to-do about that. Of course, most of it is distractive. But there is a group of asteroids that orbit underneath the middle batch of the rotating Nibiru group. Now, under Uri, Attu's moon, there is this vast field of asteroids, and we came to discover this over time as they got closer and closer and closer from roughly 2012, 2013, 2014. We started seeing these rainbow debris ion cool things going off in space. And of course, NASA and everybody who, was talking to some of us, some of our scientist friends, saying, oh, no, there's ice debris in our atmosphere. And then we kept seeing these repeated patterns of shape and grouping and everything else. And so we kept watching this. And about 2014, 2015, they started getting so close and started passing within actual very close distance to Earth. And then 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019, one of the major asteroids has been crossing within Earth's ionosphere and in between us and the moon, and where it literally goes from the east coast to west coast. And we just went through that pattern about a week and a half ago. some really phenomenal footage has been just coming in from around the world. And, that's what's really cool about, all of these citizen scientists members who just, pro-am report and they take their captures in their area, and then we compare these pictures. And when these things are all coming in at the same time in Scotland and in Indonesia or in New Zealand or Africa, I don't have too many people in Africa. I have one guy that throws in some. Anyway, I digress. When all of this stuff comes in together at the same time, we know that this is not just some silly little cloud pattern that has a repeated shape over and over and over, including this major stripes and everything else and placement. And then there was a period of time back in 2016, 2017, I don't remember exactly the date, but we had a close pass where I saw the freakiest lightning storm I've ever seen in my entire life. And I love storms. And I'm up here in Montana. And it went by, and all of these lightning bolts come blasting out of the same location over and over and striking the same place. And it's like, how can that do? Because lightning supposedly doesn't strike. But when you're seeing it do it 11 times in the same spot, and the most largest lightning bolt you've ever seen in your life, and that happened here recently to some other folks on the East Coast, and they sent me the pictures in last week. And so we're seeing these asteroids, and they are orbiting on a standard rotational daily process where they round, and we can see them as they rotate under these circulating planets that go by us and now over our heads. And they're so close, they're sky pillars. I mean, these things are phenomenal. And we see the constant repeated cloud patterns in the base clouds and over the last 10 years. Now, we've been doing it 10 years this July that we've been sighting the passing planets, from first seeing them coming in under us in Antarctica and all the way to the point where they got a horizontal around 2011, and then we saw them standardly in our sky zone in the northern hemisphere from 2012 on. So this is something we've been watching every day for 10 years now, and this is so documented. Anyway, this asteroid group is below the planets, and the passing planets are now going past Earth and becoming partially illuminated, just like they did last year, but they're actually in a closer orbital rotation along with Earth. And it's been affecting our magnetosphere. It's been affecting our Earth, about all that flooding that's going on, from Texas all the way up to, Pittsburgh. And all of this weather is a direct effect of this rotational close passes. It's like sticking a large spoon in a big pot and stirring it.
Samuel, hey, we're coming up not too far on commercial break, probably 2 or 3 minutes here. I wanted to ask you a quick question before we went, because I knew you used to do some work with the government and stuff like that. So all this talk of an asteroids being, what's your take on our government or the world's government's abilities to actually stop something like this from hitting us if we know it's coming?
I actually met the guy that did the real computations for that movie that they did. I can't remember the name of it. Armageddon, yeah.
Yeah, that or Deep
and
Impact.
I knew that he works. He's from the German Polytechnic, and I talked to him. He was a member of Montana Skywatcher briefly. I believe they don't have any ability to deal with, because these are so vast and so huge you wouldn't believe.
I see.
The bomb in the middle of it isn't going to deal with what's up there. There's not just one thing. There's millions.
Right.
Millions.
Right. Yeah. Well, when the other take is, and I know you're not, you have a different view than the gravitational view, but one idea is that we gravitationally pull them away.
Well, it doesn't really, with the object cluster group and the major close larger groups, there's a certain electrical property that's going along with this. It's having a discharge effect when it hits our atmosphere, and I believe it has to do with the fact it's probably made up of a lot of more metal, where they're highly more charged. And when they introduce themselves into our ionosphere, which has also been showing up on the magnetosphere pictures, where this disruption in the magnetosphere that's, to the standard people, is unexplainable, but I understand it because I watch it every day. And there's direct, visible, factual proof that we've got these magnetic electrical objects that are passing within our ionosphere and our magnetosphere, and they're affecting everything. And we've also cycled cross-referenced this to stellar material from CMEs, and it's not that. So we've disproved that. So it's falling into place that these larger ones are skipping off of us. They're electrically pushing away, which is what the larger bodies and the planets do as well. When they come in too close, they shove each other away with the numerous series of electrical purple lightning bolts. Now, we never had purple lightning up until 2010. And that's also been a lot of direct proof that this is going on.
Well, that seems like a good pause point. We're coming up on our first break here. You're listening to our guest, Sameul Hofman. You want to find out more about him while we're talking, go to Montana Skywatchers. They're on Facebook. And if you want to find out more, you better come on back. You're listening to Radio Wasteland. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Sameul Hofman. We're talking about Nibiru. I always say Nibiru. What do you say, Samuel?
I say Nibiru.
Nibiru, okay. Yeah, I've gotten back and forth on that one. I'm not really sure, but in our defense, I think it comes from a dead language. So,
I believe it's Sumerian.
Yeah.
Definitely Sanskrit.
Yeah.
Or actually, cuneiform.
Every time I think of Sanskrit, I think of that movie PCU, where he's just all you're majoring in a 5,000-year-old dead language, and then he gives him a paper on Spanish.
Well, there were so many back then, and that all boils back to the last cycle as well. And most of the major civilizations that developed, a good portion of these languages, early languages, are completely discounted and not even understood as being at the same time period of the Nibiru cycle. I just recently watched a thing on the BBC thing by Michael Wood on China and also on India, etc. I watch a lot of this stuff. But anyway, like the Aryans in Western India, their civilizations all decayed and declined and moved from their original locations. So did riverbanks and everything. And this was all at the beginning of that same last cycle, which was 3,654 to 57 years ago. Roughly 1650, 1670. I was going to do the math tonight on that. I totally forgot because I forgot the number. But 1650-ish back on BC. And, of course, that's where they had a change in dynasties in Egypt, a change in dynasties in China. At that point in time, there was roughly 400 or so million people on the planet at the time. And civilizations all changed, and they were all discussing climate change in all of their written texts that we read and observe today. So, and people discount it too much, and it's the end of the Mycenaean period and just at the beginning of the Bronze Age.
So with this talk of language and history, now might be a great time to ask this question. You can't talk about Nibiru without people thinking of Zecharia Sitchin, without people making the comparison and stuff like that. And I know you have a different view on a lot of the stuff that Sitchin thought. But when it comes to the sort of history, the ancient histories of Nibiru and life and our leaders there, or our controllers, our omnipressors, or whatever. Do you follow that aspect of it?
Well, that depends on which faction you're referring to, because there are multiple factions, and I'm glad you brought that up, because your co-host, I know he'd be interested in a lot of this stuff. We've been citing the Texas Cube, and we've been citing the Empire Orb again, and they've been right in the front of the Object Cluster Group, and which has just been right next to vastly large currently and Earth-passing Attu's moon. It has gotten so close and so big this year as due past that it's just, it's mind-boggling. It's actually illuminating the skies at night, and we've seen numerous sightings of purple illuminated skies at night on the backside of Earth, which proves they're there. We've had absolute proof over the last 10 years that they're there, but I just love it when we really, really see it. And we're looking at the times of absolute proof, documented evidence that extraterrestrial beings are here, and they did get through the Texas. That's why we call it the Texas Cube, because there's a portal that formed over Texas, and then there was a portal to Norway Spiral where the Empire Orb came through, and all the presidents and world leaders of the pretty much like G11 or G12 countries were in Norway the night that occurred, and folks should go look all that up on YouTube. Look up the Empire Orb and look up the Texas Cube, because we've been watching it. We're getting sightings for the last month and a half every day of the cube, and I'm talking we're getting them majorly in Europe. They've been really clear in Europe, and then I went outside the other day and sat there for about 3 hours watched the Texas Cube, and it's got a side orb and it puts off this really cool similar pattern. And we've got so many sightings and so many pictures over the years, and all the markings match. It's just, goosebumps. And so, and I don't like to talk a lot about the ETs because I don't want people to go, oh, he's just full of, he's seeing, little green man. And I don't want to go there. And that's why usually, I try to stick to the planets and the object cluster group. But, we've seen so many sightings. This is phenomenal. And if you guys don't believe in this, it's really serious time that you jump on board with this because this is proven. I have spent so much, and we have spent, Montana Skywatchers too, we've been spending so much time seeing this. Has become literally like old hat.
So is it your going back to the planets? Is it your take that the major weather phenomenon that we're seeing? Everybody's talking about global warming and
right.
that it's causing these things. Are you saying that it's the planets, that global warming is also happening? Is it a combo, or what?
Now,
what do you think?
The binary solar system that we are made of, there are two suns, two sets of planets, two groups, and they are attached to Hercubus, which is a massive, it fills parts of our entire solar system, gas giant that holds the two stars together. Now, the second sun is larger than our Sol, and it is currently co-orbiting with ours in a tandem thread link, and then Hercubus is behind them, and you can see pictures, evidence of that literally for the last 3 to 5 years as well. And we see it in space pictures and everything. All you have to do is look at the dark spots. Don't pay attention to the light. Pay attention to the darkened pictures, and you'll start to see all of these planets. And eventually, if you find out where they are, which we do monthly drawings on Montana Skywatcher too, and once you start to associate these patterns, you start to see it, and it's just like, oh my God, it's there. Because I get so many pictures every day. I get hundreds of pictures sent to me from around the world, from citizen scientists, and we're all putting this together, and it's fact now. They come in, they do their thing, and then we've seen patterns of them that they're heading away from us over time in a larger and larger loop within the last 4 years. They came up from below Earth, the subhorizontal, and that's why everybody was people who in the know went to Antarctica and went down to Australia to set up the SETI projects and everything to watch them coming in. And we watched them come in from Neumeyer Station for years, in which at some periods of time it was supposed to be dark down there, which is as normal. And for a few years there, Neumeyer Station was illuminated during times that they were supposed to be dark, which was another batch of proof that this was occurring, which is it incensed us to even watch even more. And this has become so proven that, if people don't get online with it, they're just basically silly because the evidence is absolutely undeniably clear that these planets are here. The colors, the stripes, the patterns, time after time, it's all the same. And people really need, it's on YouTube. There's a lot of crap out there, too, where people are just totally lost and talking out their backsides. But it's really, really, really happening. And what's even cooler is that, the quasi-cotal, the Texas cube, whatever you want to call it, is also from legend. And it also matches in the drawings and the actual pictures we're getting in. And I saw a video today somebody sent me where the Empire orb is close passing Earth, and it's got like 8 little glowing little UFOs flying past it. And, it argues with the mind when you see the video because you tell yourself, nah, this has got to be Photoshop. And yet, my God, there's a refraction flare coming off the thing when it turns on its lights and everything else, and it's very much like a sighting where I personally did see the Empire orb drop out of the clouds, change direction, and turn its central blue light on. And it was, we're talking pee your pants. And I watched this. So, people have to, we're not full of beans and we're not seeing fairies and pixies and sprites, which are two different groups. But anyway. This is very, very real, and people have to get on board with this because the science is, we're coming up on 10 years. Yeah, millions of pictures.
Unfortunately, we're a minute or two away from the break, but when we come back, I definitely want to ask you, I know we've covered this each time that we've talked, but I don't understand why, if this is all the case, why people would be keeping this from us, and then the other question that I really want to address to you when we come back in line with that would be, why are they keeping it from us? And, with such a drastic paradigm shift for people, do they have anything to fear? So you're listening to Radio Wasteland. Our guest, Sameul Hofman. If you're interested, check him out, Montana Skywatcher. And we're going to break, so come on back. Radio Wasteland. We're talking about Nibiru.
Yeehaw!
All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Sameul Hofman. We are talking about Nibiru. Sameul, so before we went to break, we were talking a little bit about, that this should be so obvious. And so why would everybody push for us not to believe this? And ultimately, do people have anything to fear? Change is scary to people. Do they have anything to fear?
Yeah, they have a lot to fear. We have a lot to fear because when we talk about they or everybody, the automatic assumption is it's one group. And it's not. There are multiple groups on Earth who, of course, have been let into some of this information over time through secret groups and cults and et cetera. And it is in the Cabal, and there is secret texts around where this discusses this openly. Even the Greeks knew that we had a binary solar system. And that information's out there. And then there is the off-Earth factions. And, of course, the people on Earth are trying to buy favor with the off-Earth factions. And there are a number one, the life forms on the planets here. And then there is the visiting life forms. The Draco are here. There's rumors of Octurian, and we know that there's multiple different craft hanging out around the sun right now because we've had nonstop proof of that. There's multiple factions here for the dual sun process that's going on, and that's what's known as the ascension. This is known as a living ascension. Now, the Mayan calendar refers to transition from the 4th age to the 5th age during the 13th Baktum, and you can look that up as well. These factions are all playing for the golden ticket on the bus, and then there's a lot of people who know about the deep underground bases and stuff, and I hate to mention that, but they do exist. I've been in one. They're deep. Frankly, you'll never get me back in one, and I wouldn't want to be having the world move over the top of me and leaving me down there anyway. But they're completely self-sufficient, and they've got everything they ever dreamt of down there, and they're still loading it to this day. And so they're going to, of course, when you see the rats start to scurry, and this will be all the way to the last minute, either when we lose world power from a major CME or we get hit by a larger asteroid, which NASA is currently warning over. And I'm amazed to this day we have not seen another Chelyabinsk event from the object cluster group with the asteroids. Not that all the big ones are going to miss us. There's going to be some stuff that's going to scrape off. And so we're going to get hit by something, and I'm amazed it hasn't happened yet. So I'm still looking to this summer, to this fall, through the 180-day cycle, when all of this stuff is recently drastically close at a certain recognizable pattern that we've seen from the last couple of years. Now, I don't know exactly if it's going to be the same this time. I know it's a lot closer. I know they're highly illuminated because once they pass into the light, where we're looking at them instead of the illuminated side, instead of looking at their dark backsides and having to find them literally by cloud definition and base clouds, which is also in some of my videos. It's called Understanding the Skies, Edition 1, Sameul Hofman. It's on YouTube. That tells you the base cloud patterns and how to recognize it when the clouds enter our ionosphere and close past Earth. And then all these storms and cloud generations occur, and they have specific patterns that we have recognized and documented over the last 9 years. But back to the people. They don't want this. It's going to happen. There's going to be a culling of the herd like there is every cycle. And if you look back through history, and if you understand Sumerian texts and some of the information that is talked about, you have to understand the role of humans. We're on an earth factory. We produce for the larger system. They come back every 3,654 years, collect their commodities that we provide for them. And there's a very large system at play here, and they're not going to drop their hand on the table until it's the last call.
So normally with fear,
right.
There would be, but you can do this. Is there something that we can do?
That we can do?
Yeah.
Well, I was told some things by my meeting with the Pleiadian, and everything he's pretty much told me has been true. And this was a face-to-face. This was not some, channeled or any far-seeing stuff, which I am very good at. That's because that's what I was recruited for. But anyway, you can look that up, too. What I was told is that once the catastrophe will happen, now they expect this to happen because it's a reboot of all the commodities. Every cycle, the earth breaks up and all kinds of, new stuff gets made and et cetera, and all, new oil, new gold, new this, platinum, gold, silver, everything, diamonds, whatever. It gets all made by the tectonic plates crashing and creating new stuff. and then there's far less of us to control. And I was told after the dust settles and like-minded communities start to form, they will then intervene and start the process again, which you could look at. It's like be prior to the first dynasty of Egypt, where they have direct contact with the gods, or when the Mayans and the Incans had direct contact with the gods.
Is that because of a planetary proximity? You know, I mean, like,
well,
when we're far apart, is it hard for them to get to us? Is that because...
No. These people, there's races that have the ability to move entire planets or create them, to create space compounds in which to, like Earth is pretty much the sorcerer's stone. We create gold, and it's a very not normal thing. Gold has a positive ionization. It's a metal, and it luminesces, and it has all these vastly cool properties that a lot of people need to look into. And it's one of the soft metals group that has a different radioactive charge than everything else, and it's special.
I see. So the Earth itself is kind of the factory.
Excuse me?
The Earth itself is kind of the factory.
Yeah, we're a special place, and we're the backwater factory, but we're very special to a very large group of people. So they're not going to. The Earth will never be destroyed within a period of time that we could care to worry about. And it's cyclic, and we go through this, and then they come down and they pick up the commodities, and this is why they're not telling people, because they want to collect as much commodities until they can, before they leave, and we're talking tons and tons and thousands and hundreds of thousands of tons of gold that is collected from now, or the beginning of the next cycle, all the way until the end of the cycle, where then next cycle they come to get it and pick it up. And this happens over and over. And within the last government change of the people who own our area of space, the last 300,000 years, there has been 83.3 cycles. Just to do the math.
Unfortunately, we're right here.
Going on. We are not the first civilization to achieve certain levels.
Well, unfortunately, Samuel, we're right here at the end of the show. I want to give a few minutes here for you to tell our listening audience where they can find out about you. Of course, I've touted your Facebook group here a little bit, but it sounds like you got a YouTube channel maybe you can tell us about?
I have most of my radio things and some of my earlier videos. Now currently I'm having trouble posting on YouTube because my new videos will not upload for some reason. And I've tried 4 days in a row to do one 11-minute video, and it wouldn't load, so I'm going to have to keep after these guys. I think they're stopping me. My 30-year non-disclosure agreement ended in 2010, but that doesn't mean they stopped watching me. You can see my materials on Montana Skywatcher 2, because that's the open site where everybody can come, and we just about let everybody in there. Montana Skywatcher 1 is for closed group and more seasoned members, and we talk about a few different things here and there, but we're generally, they're both pretty much the same site, except 2 is way more active. A lot more people are busy from around the world, and where we talk and discuss things. And if you'd like to send a small donation, $5 in a card, P.O. Box 625, Lolo, Montana, 59847. And, keep listening to Radio Wasteland, because you guys have got, the best guests in the whole world, me included. I'm a little bragging there.
Well, I appreciate that push. And this is your third time on.
I noticed a couple of my competitors that I really wish you hadn't actually even given them 5 minutes of their time. But
we got to get it out there. Yeah.
I can't run the world.
Well, somebody does.
Well, actually, a lot of somebodies, and everybody's trying to, get all the Cheetos before the dog does.
Well, Samuel, it's been great having you back on. We're going to have to do it again.
And I'd like to thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. It has been a great show. You've been listening to Sameul Hofman here on Radio Wasteland. Check us out at radiowasteland.us. Check him out on YouTube and Montana Skywatchers 2 on Facebook.